Have you ever listed your home for sale then been confused by the escrow task scheduling contained in purchase offers you've received? If so, don't worry, I'm going to show you just how to translate that contract language into dates and times on your calendar. So stay tuned. Hi, this is John, and welcome to another edition of Cozy, Charming, Crazy Real Estate, where we talk about everything real estate. And today we're going to talk about another topic I get a lot of questions on, and those are all about real estate contract dates. A lot of people get confused because there are several types that are used in any typical home sale contract. So we're going to talk about them. I'm going to show you some quick examples so that when you get a contract or you want to put one together along with your agent, you can understand how what goes into a contract translates onto an actual calendar. So first, let's start with the three types of dates that are found in most real estate contracts. Now, the first one is a specified date, and very simply, that is the month, day, and year, January 1st, 2023. That is called also a date certain sometimes because you're talking about a very specific date. The second kind of date you'll see is a dependent date, and it is a task that occurs or finishes based upon the start or finish of another task. So therefore, it's dependent. And the most common two types that you're going to see is days before or days after. So here's a quick example of days before and days after. First, you'll see typically is days after. So what happens is a milestone or task is completed on a specific date, as we have here. And that date is actually day 0 in our counting, because the requirement says so many days after an occurrence. So by after, we mean that the date of that occurrence is 0, then 3 days after starts the following day, 1, 2, 3, and at the end of the third day, we have to have that next task completed. Now, it works the opposite way in this example of days before. Let's say a very easy one to understand is days before close of escrow. That either one of the parties must complete something 3 days prior to escrow closing. Well, if we know the date that escrow closes, and let's assume we do, that is day 0. The day before is day 1, and then we count backwards 3 days, and on that third day, that task must be completed or done, whatever is required for that third day. And so that's how the dependencies work. Now, the third type of date that you might find is an excluded date. And normally in most contracts, there's an actual paragraph that says, here's how you count dates, basically what I just explained. And they also talk about holidays and business days. Now, in counting days, we normally, for most counting, unless it's specified differently in the contract, most standard contracts, we're counting calendar days. That means Saturdays and Sundays, and even holidays count in the counting. Now, there's one exception, and that is when a buyer and seller form a contract. They sign a purchase contract, and it's now going into escrow. The buyer has 3 business days to submit their earnest money deposit to the escrow officer. That is the only task that typically is based on business days. All other days in our schedule, when they say that tasks must be done before or after, when we have a dependency, all the weekend and holidays are always counted. Now, in excluded days, though, we can't do certain things on excluded days. And it makes a lot of sense that we say that any day that a government office is closed, such as the county recorder's office is closed, well, we can't complete escrow on a holiday when that office is closed. So typically excluded days that we may, let's say, not close escrow, would be a holiday or a weekend day when government offices, again, are typically closed, and even when businesses such as escrow offices are closed. As we know, real estate agents, they work all the time. They don't take a lot of time off. There are very few that do. Most real estate agents are super accessible. They're willing to work any time of day on any day to get a transaction completed. However, we are dependent upon government offices and escrow and other participants supporting the process. So we do have those dates that are excluded. Now, we're going to talk about that in a simple example here in just a second. So let's go ahead and get in the examples. First example, we see a standard layout. This is what we typically do here with clients. We receive, let's say if we're representing the seller, we go through the contract. We try to put out a timeline so that everybody understands what the dates mean. Now, if it's a dependent date and a previous task is done early, or if it's done late, that could adjust subsequent tasks, but we won't worry too much about them. We have to have a starting place. We lay this out, and you can kind of see we have very common tasks here. The buyer submits the deposit to escrow, reports, information, disclosures are given to the buyer. Buyer completes their inspections. Most contracts, they used to say 14 days. Now I think 17 days is the most common. You have 17 days for the buyer to do their inspections. That period for mortgage mortgage approval is going to be based, of course, on the mortgage lender, what their processing times are, but that's up to the buyer to find out and put in their offer, how much time they need for that. And then once the loan approval is received and all the inspections are done and the buyer still wants to go through with it, they release their contingencies. And then finally we have the closing date, which is the date that we also change possession. By change of possession meaning we turn over the keys, and then when the grant deed is recorded, the buyer is now the owner. We also then have combination dates, and where this is most common, as we bring up the next example, is we might say that we want to close specifically on the last day of the month. And we're not going to say, as most contracts do, they say, well, we want to close this 30 days after acceptance of the offer. Well, that would be really fine. But if we look at the 30 days and it lands on a weekend, lands on a holiday, lands partially into the next month, we might want to say, no, we have business reasons why we want to close on the last day of the month. Sometimes people want to close on the first day of the month, but in some contracts you may see that they do a date certain or a specified date for that closing. So you might see some before and after requirements for tasks within the escrow process, but the buyer and the seller may agree to have a specific date for that escrow closing. Now we also, in this example, we see that we have weekends that are now shaded, and luckily for us in our example, we don't have any tasks that are being completed on weekends for which we require escrow or government agencies. So this happens to be pretty good. But in the final example that we're going to bring up is we're going to need to adjust for excluded dates. And here I have a holiday that you can see also shaded. And that holiday means that when a dependency date just happens to fall on a holiday or a day that government offices are closed, then automatically by function of rule, that task is now due the following day. It is not due prior to that day unless you put that in the contract. If not specified, it automatically falls on the next day following, the next day after. So we see that we have moved it to the next business day. Our closing has been moved, and I have a little dash there shows that nothing happens on that holiday day. It's a federal holiday, we'll say. and so it occurs on the next day. Now, what happens on a day like Thanksgiving, which we know in the United States always occurs on that Thursday, and how about that Friday? Well, if the government offices are open, if escrow is open, then the buyer and seller and their agents should confirm that at the beginning of escrow. However, in most instances, government offices on a Friday are going to be closed after Thursday holiday. So again, that day will not count either. So when you have a escrow closing scheduled to close on a Thanksgiving, you want to assume then that, or confirm that it's going to take place on the following Monday. Now, hopefully when a buyer is putting together their offer, they're going to assume that the seller is going to hopefully sign that offer, accept that offer within a day or two. So it really falls to the buyer to make sure that they start the process not having things occur on holidays. Try to set your dates to steer around any downtime in the system. So those are the three kind of dates. This is how we plot them out on our own personal calendar so that we can manage our tasks as buyers and sellers, or those who support them, and get the escrow done on time. Hey, if you found that there was something not explained well enough for you, please leave a comment below. If you have any additional questions about contract dates we didn't cover, please leave a comment. If you like this information, found it helpful, please hit like, and I hope you will subscribe. And join us again soon on Cozy, Charming, Crazy Real Estate. Take care.